Hey folks! This is the supplementary video to opera versus music theater, trying to find a definition. The biggest problem in defining a difference between opera and music theater is that it's sort of like trying to define the difference between a submarine and a sailor. That might seem really condescending, but opera isn't just one genre, it's like 40 genres. And music theater just doesn't compare because, let's face it, it's been around for at most 80 years. Opera's been around for 250, 300 years, and it by itself is not really a genre. They're really almost impossible to compare. For instance, all of the original operas were Italian because opera was invented in Italy. In fact, opera is the ultimate manifestation of something that was pretty brand new back then, which we call monody, which just means that we have a single melody that is accompanied by something, rather than polyphony, which is when we have 4 or 5 different melodies, 1 or 2 of which might be more important than the others, but might not be. The idea of monody was the birth of the song, and I know it's really hard for us to think of a time when something like that wouldn't exist, but that was most of history. Most music was polyphonic for a long time. So for a while, all opera was Italian opera, but then, of course, some opera became French opera, and after that, some opera became German opera. For instance, in France, if you wanted to produce an opera, for most of operatic history, you had to include a ballet. What the heck's a ballet doing in opera? I don't know, the French like to dance. They're a bunch of dancy sissy pantses. I can't help it, I live in Germany, folks. Eventually, comic opera was also a thing. So we had opera seria, serious opera, and we had opera buffo, which is comic opera. We also had opera comique in France, und das Singspiel in Deutschland. And all of these genres of opera eventually switched into their 19th century versions of themselves, which was actually a time when the serious opera and the comic opera started to collapse on itself and kind of sort of become the same thing. It's all very complicated, and you can study it, but the point is that opera is a big genre, and that doesn't even touch the surface of what contemporary opera sounds like. I mean, it's like a different beast altogether. I also mentioned in the video that music theater didn't actually come out of opera, and I'm serious about that. A lot of people like to connect music theater with operetta, partly because some music theater companies like to do operettas to supplement their repertoire. And there may be some similarities, but operettas were being written well before music theater was ever on the scene, and music theater pieces were being developed completely outside of the influence of operetta. Because operetta is just the British version of comic opera, just like the German Singspiel and the French opera comique and the opera buffo. I hate to say it, folks, but music theater came out of cabarets and brothels, which isn't a problem, it's just how it was. I mean, let's face it, that's practically the only 2 places you could find public performances of jazz music, and music theater has been heavily influenced by jazz throughout its inception. But the broader point here is that it doesn't really matter if it's music theater or opera. It's a false distinction. Music theater is just another in a long line of staged, theatrical, musical productions. It's something that we've done since 1700, and it's something I suspect we're going to keep doing until this planet of ours gets blown up by something. So I hope you understand this topic a little more fully. Thanks for watching, folks.